Hello, YouTube. This is Dan, aka 1000 ASINs. I've sold over $80 million via Amazon wholesale. I'm going to take a deep dive into Keepa. So, Keepa is probably the most essential software that I use. It's an absolute must for everyone to learn this. If you don't use Keepa, you're really flying blind. So, stick around for this video. I'm going to go through various different types of Keepa charts you'll encounter in the wild and how that pertains to my purchasing decisions and whether to move forward buying a product or not. Without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to be just leafing through a bunch of products and looking at their Keepa charts and explaining how Keepa works and some of the things I'm looking at to decide whether to make a purchase on a product or pass. So I'm going to go through a bunch of different types of listings and just kind of impart some of my wisdom, what I'm thinking about, what's going through my head, and all the factors I'm analyzing when looking at a Keepa chart. And I tried to pull up some products that were somewhat different from one another for various reasons, and that should give you a lot of different examples to go off and the type of things I'm thinking about it. So let's dive in, and we'll just go product by product, and yeah, let's do it. So here's the first one: Wonder Grow Jamaican castor oil. So some of the first things I'm looking at, and by the way, this extension here is called RevSeller. I also use that in conjunction with Keepa. RevSeller will give you a quick glance at the profitability of an item. So it'll break down, the referral fee, fulfillment fee, any like storage and inbound shipping costs, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, you just plug in your buy costs. So let's say like I can get this product for $1.75. It'll show how much I'll net per unit, 84 cents, and then the ROI and profit margin as well. So that, helps me determine profitability. And sometimes it's a non-starter whether I'll even look at the Keepa chart, because if my price is not profitable, I'll probably pass on it. And then the other thing I'm looking at before Keepa is whether I'm approved to sell the brand. So RevSeller will show this approval icon if you're able to apply to request it. So I would request approval, submit an invoice. One pro tip about ungating: if there's no $ in front of the brand name, that usually means you can apply and get approved with most invoices. If there is a $, it's a little bit stricter, actually a lot stricter. So something to keep in mind there. And then sometimes RevSeller will just show a restricted icon, in which case I can't even apply to sell the brand, in which case I'll pass over it unless I have a list directly from the brand and they can authorize me in their brand registry to sell the product. So yeah, let's just assume the price here, $1.75. So you have to ask yourself if that amount of profitability is okay with you. And then let's go down to the Keepa chart. So the main things I'm looking for in a Keepa chart is the price history. So what is the price at today? It looks like it's at $6.49 today. And what has it been in the past? So I'll just, I can go like, you can hover over like a certain date range and it'll zoom in. So I'll just go a little just since November. And I'm looking at the new, either the buy box price or the new third-party FBA price. So buy box is around $7.39, actually $6.99, excuse me. And then hovering kind of between $6.99 and $7.40 or so, $7.80 here actually, then back down to $6.99, $6.49. So I'll kind of like hover over the last 3 months. I'll even zoom out sometimes to just see the overall long-term price trend. So this product has been on Amazon for 2,760 days. So how many years is that? Let's see. So 7.5 years this product's been on. And I can actually see the price history from all the way back when it was put on. Started out at like $12, $13 and then kind of settled at like $7 to $8 for the past 5 years. So that's actually a positive. So that's one thing I like to see, like a pretty solid price. That's not a complete roller coaster. It's been hovering in a pretty tight band between like, $6.99 and $7.99, which is good to see, because I like to buy based on a worst case scenario. So let's say this product was at $6.95 for half the year and $7.95 for the other half of the year. I'm buying with that $6.95 in mind to at least break even or make a little bit of money if more sellers come on the listing and then the price starts getting more competitive. I don't want to buy for just hoping that an abnormally high price is going to stay there. So like, let's say theoretically the buy box price was $8.99 right now, and let's say our cost was $2.50. Looks great right now, and I may buy right now, but I'm not going to necessarily buy a huge amount, because I know, let's say 90% of the year it was at $6.99. and this is just an abnormal time. Usually what will happen is more sellers will come back in stock of the item and then grind the price back down to, the long-term average, which means, let's assume it's at $6.99 most of the year. Well, now all of a sudden it's practically break even after prep costs and shipping costs and storage costs. It's probably even losing money. So that's one tip for you guys. Don't buy on like the hope that a temporary high price is going to stay. If the pricing doesn't work most of the year, you should really be looking at the price lows instead of the price highs. And if it is at like a very temporary high, don't get greedy and buy 2,000 units and then get surprised if the price goes back down to its long-term average. And if you want to learn directly from me and fast track your way to wholesale success, click the link below and we'll talk to you soon. Next thing I'm looking at is number of sales, of course. So Keepa introduced just a few months ago this monthly sold number, and I think it's because Amazon now publishes this. So around the same time, Keepa was able to pull this data, which is really useful. And then I'll look at the number of sellers. So on the bottom here, it looks like the number of sellers goes up quite a bit and goes down quite a bit. This is actually a pretty healthy pattern to see with a wholesale listing. It means that sellers are coming onto the product, selling through it, coming off the product, and then restocking, coming back on. So a wave of sellers up and down like this is a pretty healthy thing. There's a really sharp drop here, which is interesting. It looks like there's a sudden surge of demand all of a sudden, and pretty much everyone sold through it, and the listing was completely out of stock for a few days. But then, everyone pretty quickly came back in stock. And then another thing I'm looking at is buy box. So how much buy box, how much is it being rotated through the 12 FBA sellers right now? Is there anyone that's ultra dominant? Is the brand on the listing? Is Amazon on the listing? Keepa will show when Amazon's on the listing with, the background will be highlighted orange if Amazon.com is in stock. Looks like Amazon has never stocked this product, which is good to see. I like to avoid Amazon. And now let's go into data and then buy box statistics. And this will show the percentage buy box that various sellers are getting over the last 30 days or so. So we'll let that load for a second. Here we go. And this is another positive thing that I like to see. So you're seeing buy box percentages, and you can see that they're relatively equal, 28, 21, 19, 17, 14. This is actually a good sign. And you can even compare the review counts of the sellers too. So if you're a new seller, you might be worried, can I compete against the mega sellers? Well, you can see if the buy box is rotating to a newer seller. So this seller has 677 reviews, whereas the other 4 sellers are in the tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of reviews. And it's good to see that the buy box is still rotating. So if you can get a decent price on this product, it looks like a pretty solid opportunity because I'm seeing a long-term stable price history, good velocity, 2,000-3,000 units per month. So if I were to be added as seller number 13 and price competitively, I would expect to sell 500-600 units a month or more of this product. And one thing to know about competitive sellers, a lot of people just lazily divide, 2,000 sales divided by 12 sellers and think they're going to get, 150 to 200 sales a month, but that's not really how it works. You really need to look at the competitive sellers. So what are people priced at? So I see one's at $679, one's at $699, one's at $695. And then it goes up from there, $739, and then even higher from there. So of the 12 sellers or so, there's really only like 3 that are competitive. So if you're planning to be competitive and price aggressively to always be in the mix with the competitive sellers, then you will probably be getting like 1,000 sales a month and not 150. So it's not just about number of sellers, it's about number of competitive sellers. So make sure you're looking at the competitive sellers, not just overall number. So that's number 1, interesting product. Let's move on. This is a product I actually purchased because I make pour over coffee. This one's going to be a lot quicker because we can basically identify that the brand themselves is on the listing. Chemex brand, sold by Chemex coffee makers. You can see that there's only 1 FBA offer, 0 FBM offers. So this is a case of the brand exclusively selling on the listing. And it looks like that's fairly recent. I'm seeing on this Keepa chart, there used to be, between 4 and 8 sellers for a while. And even Amazon.com had some product, as you can see, evidenced by the orange background here. But it looks like they've kind of completely shut it down and they're the only ones selling. So this is an example of a product and a brand that I'd skip right over in terms of trying to buy. Next, let's take a look here. So only 3 FBA offers, which is nice. Over 4,000 units sold, which is nice. So if you were to be added as a fourth offer, I'd expect 1,000 to 2,000 sales on this product. Now let's go to the Keepa. This is a more interesting Keepa because the price is really bouncing off all over the place. We see earlier in the year a period of complete stock out, which means sellers weren't carrying enough stock of the product, or perhaps the manufacturer distributor ran out of stock and they were also scrambling to get back in stock. But it looks like quite a popular product that's gaining in popularity. So another thing I'll look at is like, what's the overall sales trend? Is it getting higher? Is it getting lower? This looks like an example of a product where more and more sales are happening. So hovering around 1,000 sales a month, bumping up to 2,000 a couple months ago, and now we're even up higher, 3,000, 4,000. So that's I like to see products with a positive sales trend, especially over a long period of time. It means you can go heavier and heavier, stock more and more of the product. And one downside of this product, I'm seeing the price all over the place. So 1985 one day, then 18, then 15.99, all the way to 21.99, up and down as high as 27.99. So it would really depend on the price here. So if I were looking, I would draw like an imaginary line in my head around like, $16, $17 and see and ask myself, is it still profitable at that price point? So let's put in $15.99 into the calculator as the sale price, and then see what we would net, $8.52. So let's say we get this product for like $8 a piece. I mean, it's pretty tight. It's something I'd probably buy, assuming that most of the time it's going to be more at like $20, but understanding that, if it gets really competitive out there, I might be close to breaking even on the product. So let's put in like an average price. So some weeks you might sell it for $22. Other weeks you might sell it for 18. Let's just say on average, $19.99 is what you're going to sell it for on average. Then we're talking pretty good numbers. So, 20% margin, 49% ROI. So this is an interesting one. When there's like big jumps like that, I would, just like the last one, plan for the worst. Make sure you don't get hosed if it's like there's an extended period where it's at a lower price, and kind of take an average if it's all over the place. And you should expect reasonably to, sell on average, all the prices throughout the last year if you remain in stock. Moving on to another one. Let's see. 7 FBA offers. This is the last year. It's looking like a pretty stable price. I'm looking at the lows again. This was a very brief period. It was at like 15. I would probably almost discount that because 95% of the year is up more at like $18 or so. And then more recently, it's been up to like 20. Number of sellers, not a ton of sellers, and they're coming on and selling through. It's kind of a healthy pattern. If you ever see a huge drop in sellers, like 20 sellers down to 0, that usually means the listing was either restricted and the listing went down, or the brand did a big cleanup and filed IP complaints against a bunch of sellers. So if you're seeing like huge seller drops like overnight regularly on the listing, that's kind of a danger zone. So really what you want to see with seller count is them like selling through gradually and coming on gradually without any really sharp declines in number of sellers. This one, Amazon was on at part of the year. It looks like off it most of the year. So I wouldn't be too worried about Amazon in this instance. And again, I would just look at the unit economics. So I would say, what is my buy cost? Let's say it's $10. I would determine whether that ROI and profit margin is acceptable. And then I would look at the sellers, how many of them are competitive. So we have one at 2070, we have one at 1865, 1899. So there's really only like 2 competitive sellers. So again, I would expect to get like a third of the sales if I'm always competitive. This is a strange one because the rank is very good, 9,300 in health and household, but Amazon is not showing how many sold in the last month. And that's just kind of a glitch. Sometimes Keepa and RevSeller, like they can't pull the data from a listing for whatever reason, but this looks like it's a fast seller. Without my own actual sales data, I would go a little lighter on this. Even though it looks like it sells thousands of units a month, I would maybe test it with 100 or 200, make sure it does sell as fast as I think it will, and then restock a lot heavier if things went according to plan. Next, okay, this is a brand I'm restricted for, so I would recommend you guys all have a tool like RevSeller or Seller Amp. There are 3 or 4 tools out there that can tell you this type of stuff. So if I am buying from a distributor and I can't get like a letter of authorization or ideally, a reseller invite directly from brand registry, I'm probably just going to skip over that. And yeah, looking at all the same stuff, but since I'm restricted, I'm just going to skip over it. Let's take a look at this one. 4 sellers, $9.99, a lot of sales. This is a very interesting chart, actually. This one's really important to understand for wholesale. So see how there's basically a straight line, like a very stable price, $9.99. That is indicative of a MAP, so minimum advertised price policy, where the brand, they're working with resellers and they expect those resellers to sell at that exact price. And this is an example of a brand or a product that's actually having trouble with MAP. So you see it's $9.99 some of the time. There's probably a couple bad actors on the listing that are dropping the price to get more sales. So all of a sudden it's $8.99 here, even $7.85, then back up to $9.99. So those are probably MAP breakers. And then you can see the price just like fluctuates up and down, up and down. So there's a few months here where MAP is only adhered to like half the time. And often when this happens, the brand gets pissed. And that's a big part of the reason why they say no more Amazon sellers. Because let's say they already have 4 or 5 Amazon sellers on a listing, 1 or 2 of them are bad actors. Why are they going to add a 6th Amazon seller to just potentially do the same thing? That brand is probably thinking at that point, we need less Amazon sellers. We need to probably work with 1 or 2 of the really good sellers that are not breaking MAP and stop selling to these bad guys. So gives you a little context why brands are saying that. And that can be a talking point. You can say on the phone, yeah, I noticed that on, this product here, MAP was being broken about half the time. So are you cutting those sellers? Blah, blah, blah. What's your plan? And then another really interesting thing on this Keepa chart is these drops here. So see how these are like kind of structured drops that go at, like everyone's down at this price and everyone's back to regular price. These are promotions. So brands will often tell the resellers, we have a Black Friday promotion or Christmas promotion or New Year's promotion, whatever, where it's going to be from this date to that date, and we're going to have a promotional price that's lower, and then all the resellers will lower their price for that period of time and then raise it back up. Sometimes brands will credit the reseller for all these discounted ones because, dropping the price from $9.99 to $6.85, like everyone was probably losing money at this price. So sometimes the brands will say, oh, we'll give you $2 back on your next invoice per unit that you sold at this promotional price. But if you ever see Keepa's doing that, like temporary drops and then right back up to MAP on a regular cadence, those are sales, promotions, et cetera, et cetera. So it doesn't mean that everyone's breaking MAP here. It just means it was like a planned thing from the brand. So a couple interesting things on this brand. If it were me, I'd be fairly weary of the MAP breakers, but it looks like in the last 6 months it's been better, but not perfect. As you can see, someone here is like undercutting by a penny, $9.98 instead of $9.99. So I'd watch out for a little bit of trickery, but this looks good enough where I would want to probably buy it. But yeah, definitely be wary of brands that are like struggling with MAP. Like you see that it's a flat line some of the time, and then it's like being broken all the time. Those are tough brands because you have to make a decision yourself. Like, are you going to be a good guy, wait everything out, or are you going to move product because you have to? So those are some of the common wholesale dynamics with MAP. Moving on, Kodak. Let's see, Amazon.com is on it, and they seem to be consistently on it. There is a brief period of stock out here. There was a third-party FBA seller, these orange triangles. When those are on the graph, that means a third-party seller has an offer on there. So it looks like someone came on, stocked out, came on again and stocked out, which is actually a good sign. When you see that on a listing where Amazon dominates, it means like that third-party seller did get sales and sold through all of their inventory. So that would be a bit of a confidence boost competing with Amazon. And then again, you can go into data, buy box statistics, and see, is Amazon like taking 100% of the buy box, or is it actually being shared? So let's take a look in this case. And then again, this looks like a MAP situation as well. Yeah, so Amazon, 84%, Adorama, 14%. So it is being shared with one seller, and then there are a few offers here that are getting less than 1%, but probably trickling sales. And then back to the graph, you can see that 249.95 is probably the MAP. It's a pretty flat line here. So if I had access to this product at the right price, I would probably attempt it, but tread carefully because Amazon does seem like they're dominant. Moving on, here's a product that I look and see that there's just not enough sales velocity for me. So the rank is pretty bad at 227,000. This might sell like 5 times a month, as evidenced by the Keepa chart, maybe even less, 2 or 3 times a month. And there's never been an FBA offer. You can't see any of those orange triangles. So if you did do FBA, it would then be prime shipping, which typically will speed up the velocity by like 50 to 100%. And then maybe you can drop the price on this too. Let's say your buy cost is like $20. Well, actually, no one's FBA'd it, so the calculator's not working. But let's say it's like 40% margin. If you drop this to like $49.95, and then also have a prime offer, you might be able to get this going where it sells like 20, 30, 40 units a month, especially if you like helped the listing out. So this might be an example of a brand that like a beginner could work with, where it's like not much going on Amazon, but with some improvements and some better pricing and prime shipping, you might be able to get something going. So yeah, here's an example of like maybe a good like starter product to try and work on and break into brand direct. Moving on, this says Kirkland. So this is an arbitrage item, knowing that this was sourced from Costco. Let's see, sold pretty well, pretty high price. Pretty much everyone sold through by July. It was totally out of stock, probably because Costco didn't carry it during like several of these months. And then there's a nice surge in sales. This is another thing I'll look at with Keepa, seasonality. So if you see big spikes in sales during certain seasons, that's obviously something to be aware of. So in July, it's only selling 50 units a month. I probably wouldn't buy hundreds of units, but as you can see in December, it was selling like 200, 300, 200 per month. I would have gone a lot deeper knowing that it's a seasonal product. So this isn't a great example of a seasonal product, but they have some really seasonal ones like Christmas products, Christmas ornaments. You'll see just massive drops in sales ranks and big spikes in sales. And another type of product in Keepa chart you can find. Next, this looks like 0 FBM offers, 1 FBA offer. This is most likely an exclusive, perfect, like map pricing. So this is a non-starter. This looks like a brand that has an exclusive arrangement with a reseller. So that's a quick skip over. Here is a product with 14 FBA offers. So they are working with multiple resellers. And you can see the very, very strict map. So this is actually kind of a dream come true. This is like a holy grail product. It sells a lot. There's a perfect map. These are probably just very temporary lapses in map. I see that the brand cares a lot about adhering to a strict map. So they were probably right on top of these sellers. It could have been a pricing mistake by someone that was corrected pretty quickly. Looks like there were a couple promotions from the brand, maybe a Black Friday or, holiday promotion. I would also look to see how buy box rotates on this, whether there's like one really dominant seller or whether it rotates evenly enough. So let's take a quick look at that. So it looks like one seller is getting almost 50% of the sales. Good for that person. But it looks like a couple others are also doing pretty well. And you can also see their stock level. So 211 stock. This person has 651 in stock. And then the guys getting really low buy box share probably just have so little stock compared to the big sellers that Amazon is not rewarding them with much buy box. So keep in mind that buy box stock levels are important, and where your stock is also important. So if you have a lot of stock in a lot of different fulfillment centers around the country and customers throughout the country see prime shipping from your offer, Amazon is going to reward you with more buy box. So the name of the game to dominate buy box in the wholesale world now is kind of to be like the deepest in stock and the most distributed stock. So, which takes some capital, obviously, but it is doable. Let's see. All right, last one for this video. Thanks for sticking with me all this time. We have a Dyson vacuum, 11 FBA offers, and then we have Amazon and the buy box. Over 4,000 of these vacuums sold last month, which is crazy. The revenue on this listing must be insane. Price history, this is interesting. Amazon's jumping up and down all over the place. You can see 1 month they're at $469, the next month they're at $349, then back up to $469. I'm seeing third-party sellers coming on and trying and hovering slightly below Amazon. You can see where Amazon is at like $539 here. And then we have FBA offers at like $529, $509. So they're basically trying to undercut Amazon a little to get buy box. And in terms of number of sellers, I'm seeing a nice pattern of sellers coming on the listing and also sellers selling through. So you can see in like September here, a bunch of sellers sold through. In November, again, a bunch of sellers sold through their stock. So this is a pretty healthy pattern, but this is something to be wary of. Like Amazon was at 279 here, which, I bet these third party sellers can't compete with that. So they might have just been waiting Amazon out. And this is actually kind of cool just to see as a consumer. It's like if you're in the market for a vacuum, like what was the best price throughout the year? I actually look at Keepa charts when I buy like higher ticket items, electronics and stuff. I can see, is this sale an actual good sale, or is it like a fake sale? Is it actually a low price like compared to what it was? So you can save a lot of money just in your personal shopping by using Keepa smartly. And you can actually set alerts too. Let's say you wanted to buy this, but only if the price comes back to the lowest it ever was. You can set an alert for this product and say, email me when Amazon has this product for $279.99 or less. And then, you'll know you're getting the best deal of the year. So yeah, last thing I'm looking at is buy box statistics. Is Amazon sharing? It looks like they actually are sharing quite a bit. They're only winning 46% of the buy box, and then one other big seller getting like a third of the sales, and then a bunch more getting pretty significant buy box, because even 6% of over 4,000 sales a month, let's say 5,000 sales, that's 300 sales a month, even getting 6% buy box. And then, let's say your buy cost is like $240 or whatever. So $42 a pop at 300 sales a month. That is quite substantial. That's a profit of $12,600 a month on the profit before returns, of course, but still, this SKU alone could be a very nice salary for somebody. So yeah, those are a bunch of different products, bunch of different scenarios. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two about how to use Keepa, some of the different dynamics I'm looking at. And it's probably the most essential tool for making buying decisions. And us as Amazon sellers are actually really blessed to have this data, because if you think about it, let's say you have a brick and mortar store, you basically have to try products out, see if they sell. They might sell, they might not, but you're really flying blind. Whereas Amazon sellers have the benefit of a huge wealth of historical data, and anything you could possibly want to know about competition, price history, sales velocity is all right here, which makes the risk of buying products a lot lower than if you were a brick and mortar. So consider yourself lucky that you have access to this data. And if you know how to use it well, then you're going to make the correct buying decisions, 99% of the time if you're using Keepa and a profit calculator smartly. Thanks for watching, guys. And if you want to learn directly from me, I've put together a system called the Brand Direct Blueprint, which has helped me scale to over $80 million of sales and counting, and it can help you do the same. Just a couple of examples from my recent students. We have Andy. Andy started in retail arbitrage doing $20,000 a month. Now he's up to $250,000 a month doing brand direct wholesale. So he's over 10x in a short period of time. Or Joey. Joey also, through the brand direct strategy, landed a big account and just put in a $111,000 purchase order, which I'm sure he's going to net, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 off that. In addition to these two students, we've helped countless other people scale their Amazon business, as you can see on the screen here, and we would love to be able to do the same for you. This video is just a tiny glimmer of all of the content inside of my program and community. So if you want to learn how to do this business the right way, click the link below, schedule a call with me, and we'll see if we're a good fit for each other. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.